Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We are here, and once again, it is a great pleasure to be in your reality. So we are pleased that we have a good crowd here, an attentive group, and that you have, in the last hour or so, reconsidered how aware you think you really are. Welcome. We are gathered for a moon afternoon, as we call it, at the Dancing Moon in Raleigh, North Carolina. We are known to stir things up and to broadcast a very live frequency here that travels telepathically all over the world. And we are here to explore unexplained mysteries from ancient worlds to modern times, and to continue our exploration of excellence in consciousness. You are the committed, the curious, and perhaps the confused. That is fine. We would say that one of the great themes of this year, and you haven't even hit the big stuff yet, this is a year of confusion. You are, like many lanes of traffic, headed in a certain direction, and suddenly the lanes are merging. And it's not so easy, as you well know, to merge many, many lanes. You know, in China, they have parts of their road system where they have big problems. They get 50 lanes. Can you imagine? Locally, you have 8 lanes here and there that merge. 50 lanes merging. China has been known over the years to have what you call gridlock and traffic jams that last for days. We ask you, are you, any of you, when you set out to go to work or on holiday, does it ever enter your mind that you might get stuck in a 3-day traffic jam? Probably not. But the people who are going to airports today to just lollygag in and get their flight are finding that in the last few weeks they've been detained, and the lines are amazingly long, and so many people merging, and nothing seems to happen. It's creating a gridlock. This is systemic and a reflection, a symbolic example of what's happening all over the world. We'll talk about this, but if there were road signs for what's ahead, they would say, people of the world, caution, chaos ahead, slow down. You get it? Mm-hmm. Good. And that chaos can be substituted for confusion. They are almost one and the same. And as always is the case, there are indicators in the heavens that show the people of Earth, and we as we deal with you and study your Earth, what some of the extenuating factors are. And just to cover the astrology very quickly, yesterday you had a full moon in the earliest degrees of Sagittarius, conjunct Mars. So there's some energy, some drive to figure things out, to get the bigger picture. Sagittarius is the bigger picture, Mars is passion. So this is a day after a full moon. And very powerful. You're still in that vortex of getting the bigger picture. And when you get the bigger picture, friends, it's not simply to pass the time. It's so that you can advance your awareness, assist your soul's growth through your own incarnation on Earth, and make changes that enhance your life. So slow down, caution, confusion ahead. The astrological impacts are tomorrow. Mercury goes direct So for the last 3 weeks, you've been in a Mercury retrograde, thinking about things, perhaps things a bit befuddled, you have to redo things, and things will move a little more forward this upcoming week, but still, you are under the larger umbrella of the 3 Saturn-Neptune squares. The first one was last year, 2015, at Thanksgiving. Everyone in their mind, go back to Thanksgiving. It's quite easy to do. We say go back to Thanksgiving, and the mind usually pops something up. Oh, sometimes it's turkey, gravy. It can be anything. Where you went, the prepping of food, how you felt afterwards, full, disappointed, satisfied, encounters with people, global stuff. That's when it started, the confusion. And the confusion that you are under from last Thanksgiving through the entirety of this year is you are challenged, each of you, to figure out what's real and what's an illusion. And you know, the radio people are full of admitting now that there's so much fake news. Even Facebook is now called fake book. Yes, because they are, everyone's so surprised that they are controlling the news feed. But the news is completely fake. And it has been shown that there are so many, quote, special effects, Hollywood-type events that have been orchestrated and perpetrated on the masses to create confusion, fear, division, separation. And what does this do? It throws water onto the electrical body, and it stops you from figuring things out. Now, the good news is that all of this purposeful discombobulation, this purposeful separating of people and confusing you and all of this, is easily recognizable as a small cadre of people who have the power of the media, which is everything right now, and they manipulate people, and people willingly sign up for this. Why? Because they are addicted. Because the media and the devices and all of this are keyed to pleasure centers in the brain. And even though people may not think they're getting pleasure, this inability to separate yourself from the device is actually a sign of addiction, very desperate addiction. We'll leave it at that, but those of our students and listeners know that we are no fan of the dumbing down of people, which is happening through basically the ubiquitous spread of cell phones, whatever you want to call these devices, tablets, pads, phones. It's tricking people into thinking that they're learning something, when actually studies are showing that college graduates are hopelessly ignorant after getting $50,000 in debt, but you would have to be ignorant to create $50,000 worth of debt when you are 22 years old. It's a sign of ignorance, and it's a sign of ignorant parents that allow this. So there's a tremendous cognitive failure that is going on worldwide. Another worldwide issue is, we'll say it in just real colloquial terms, the natives are restless. You are the natives. People everywhere are the natives. They're restless. They are ready to rumble. They are opposed to the massive government controls that are coming down in every country all over the world. We've mentioned that the people of America, USA, may be the very last to figure things out, because you are in a huge bubble here, massive bubble. And of course your president and your authorities keep giving you disinformation on the state of the economy, on the state of everything. It's all a planned illusion to get you very confused and to get you to not think. One of the goals of the Anunnaki and the current manipulators today is to have people dumb enough not to understand what's going on, yet capable enough to physically maintain themselves and go to work. We would say, in the large case, they are completely succeeded because they have convinced people that they know what's going on by these devices, but people have never been less clear and more divided and more confused. And to be fair, to be very fair, the amount of knowledge that you must know to understand what's going on in the world is massive. And you are not going to figure it out from the internet. You are creators. You are genetically engineered through time. You are the offspring of ancient earth dwellers, ancient, and you are a product of genetic hybrid engineering from Anunnaki and others. Different races were designed for different sky gods, to use that term, to make certain that one batch of gods knew which people were theirs. Enki, one of the, let's say, brothers of the Anunnaki realm, Enki and his brother Enlil. Enlil was decreed, just to review, the commander of space and air, and he was given, let's say, the Middle East in their settlements of Earth. Enki was given Africa. And later on, Enki's country was China, and Enki's son was sent to the Western Hemisphere, and one of his sons created then the entirety of the civilizations, what you call south of the border, from U.S. point of view, Mexico, Central America, and the mining developments in South America. This old planetary contention about which batch of people belong to which gods and who's been engineered to do what and who can be smart and who can't and who's a worker and who's not, all of this is now ready to be understood. You know, during the 1930s, 40s, 50s, while many secret programs were being developed, through Anunnaki influence, of course, by all means, and others, space dwellers, or celestials, we like to call them. Long ago they were called space brothers, kind of a friendly term, but we just go with the neutral term celestials. Some are good, some are very bad. You would, just so for your own understanding, your own morality, your own bottom line, your traditional values of right and wrong, good and not good, and the way you live these values determine the kind of energies you attract to yourself. If you are corruptible, cheater, liar, killer, stealer, the lower vibrational entities, the celestials, they like to hook you in, reward you, and then use you as a pawn. This happens from the poorest of people, the no ones out in the deserts of land you cannot even imagine, up to the highest portals of power, those sitting on thrones. No one is exempt from the soul's evolution. And so your foibles and your good choices make for good storytelling. Today, things are coming to a head. A few years ago, you had the end of what was called the long count calendar in terms of December 2012. Everyone held their breath and then let it out slowly and said, oh good, nothing happened. But in retrospect, dear friends, in a few mere years, look what has happened. The corruption, the greed, the mind control, the black is white and white is black, is going full force. Why would there be such a great press for chemtrails and confusion to put you down and to make you so disempowered? Why? Because you are ready to pop, and you are popping. And for those who can see the truth, it's like a candle with a steady flame that even the force of a hurricane is not going to blow out. Because once you start to figure things out, once the flame is lit, and you begin to put the pieces together and accept that even if it feels like you've been a victim, and even if you can point to all these situations where you have been held back, it is your own mind who has believed these things. It is the mind that is the solution. And we implore each of you to accept that you are a creator and that reality conforms to your beliefs. And what you believe is what you are going to create. And if you believe that you are downtrodden and that you have no fortune, then you are going to be downtrodden with no fortune. If you believe that there's a spark of cleverness in you, and that no matter what you look like and what you are, you can proceed on your own intention, clear thinking, desire, and willpower. The forces of existence read this and they respond. This is why it is easy to separate those who want to move forward and those who are befuddled. And understand, there are many today who are very befuddled due to karmic circumstances, things that they have set out in other lifetimes, and the boomerang had to return home, or the chickens came home to roost. And at various points of life, they involved in a situation that was less than ideal. This, of course, is soul learning. And you have choices always presented to you to advance yourself, to make a choice to do better or to fall prey to darker forces. So this is a little bit of a welcoming to you. And just to comment on some of the things you were discussing, the trumpet, as we call him, that's the Donald, we call him the trumpet, although one must admit that when he strikes a pose at times, probably they started calling him the Donald because he has a similar resemblance a bit to that character from post-World War II, Donald Duck. Just to throw a bit of humor in there. You know, we like to get a laugh. If you can't laugh, then it's difficult. If you can laugh, then you can ameliorate or lessen the effects of situations. So the trumpet meets with Henry Kay. Henry Kay of the famous MK Ultra handler, Henry Kay, who's like Forrest Gump. He's been there everywhere, every situation. There's Henry Kay, and he's a Gemini, so you are now in the sun is in Gemini. And Gemini has two sides, just remember that. And the Donald is a Gemini. He has two sides. And let's say that if Henry Kay is meeting with the Donald, some very big things are coming down. This does not mean that the Donald is going to fall prey to the controllers, but the controllers are playing a big game. And we ask you this. Can the many overthrow the few without creating a bloody uprising? Can the few who trick you and control you and use all manner of secret technologies, can the few that are arising to awareness rise even further and outthink this process. Because you are not going to win by going to war. And you are not going to win anything through bloody revolutions, which have a great propensity to come forward this year. There are those who want this to occur, so that then a further lockdown can be approached to a country that has many, many guns. And then there's the Donald, he was just supported by the National Rifle Association. Pay attention, dear friends, not so much to the politics, but to the symbolism. The symbolism will teach you more, because no one is really telling you the truth. And the media is running it all anyways. And remember, the media wants eyes and ears and dollars from the pocketbook. So we have much more to share with you. And of course, the good news is we're going to have a holiday weekend soon. Summer's around the corner, and the world is, as usual, full of beauty. Appreciate that beauty. And rest your mind on beauty. Make beauty. Enjoy beauty. Enjoy the simplicity of life. As we said, the Saturn-Neptune square, June 17th, 12 degrees of mutables. Pisces, Sagittarius. If you are going to be traveling in June, you'd best do some very excellent clear intentions. This third square is September, mid-September, around the 19th or some such, perhaps 10 degrees or something mutable. Both of these squares highlight the summer traveling season and the convention season. Our advice to you is, if you think 3 days trapped in an airport is outrageous, how about a few weeks? You are in systemic breakdown. You are in the people at the top pretending they don't know what's going on. But they are working to create chaos. This is not an easy summer for travel, and particularly foreign travel. France, not so good. And then if you are going to go into some of the areas where the migrants have come in, where all of the people from Northern Africa, Middle East, all along the Mediterranean there's a hotbed of confusion. So rethink perhaps what you are doing, or be prepared for long waits, long delays, unless you are going to be able to turn on that blue beam special and weave your way through all this. It's going to take exceptional intention and awareness this summer, because there's a lot of confusion ahead. All right, so we've given you that. Let's move to questions. And as usual, we ask you to state your first name loud and clear, and to ask a question that will get everyone thinking. And of course, we will tell jokes now and again. And if you would chuckle, even politely, at some of our jokes, it would be greatly appreciated. It's not so much for our ego, it's just that when you laugh, you boost your immune system and you enhance your body's chakras. And that is why sometimes we like to be ridiculous, because there's a gift in it for all of us. All right, so who is going to ask the first question, loud and clear? Is it going to be you, David?
Yes, I'm going to go on
he is the traditional first question,
David.
So we let him start it off. All right.
And I just cut Jean off, so
Make it good.
it's going to be good.
All right, Jean. She just laid it out there. Make it good.
Jean after I'm done, okay?
All right, good. Second baton.
So my question is, and it kind of goes off what you were saying, I had a conversation with your vehicle a few weeks ago about these popping up of airport delays. I think Seattle was getting it bad, Denver, Orlando, and now they're just like popping up everywhere. And you know, it seems like the last time I bought a ticket, do you guys remember you pay that
a huge
security fee?
Yes, you pay a huge fee to what's called the security people or some such.
Security.
And there's more people traveling, so there's more fees than ever. So what does this say to you?
My question is, your vehicle's reaction was they're looking for somebody or something. I think that could be part of it, but it also looks like what they're trying to do is condition to people that were just nothing more than cattle in a line.
Slow you down, yes,
So
yes.
I guess I'll throw it back to you guys. What is going on? Because they could solve this instantly, and Congress has said nothing, at least as we're aware of. Why isn't this being made a priority?
Well, there are many things that are not being made a priority. There are many things that a Politico comes out and mandates you have to do this, and yet things that really need attention are ignored. On many levels, this is the highest level. These are the breakdowns of the system. On another level, these are purposely planned obsolescence or throw cogs in the wheel to disempower people, to make them irritable, to create more chaos and confusion. And there's no more perfect time to befuddle people than these months ahead. You are highly susceptible to being confused and being used and manipulated. And it's going to take extra effort to go towards Saturn rather than Neptune and get really real. So, and a lot of people's ideals are busted. You are into the traveling season. And another level of this is that you are being prepped to stay home. Next year, Saturn is still going to be in Sagittarius. Next year is going to be even less traveling than there is this year. These are, you call them social engineering, social experiments that a few people mandate. You take a whole bunch of people and you lay them off in certain areas. Everyone's a part of something, but no one's got the bigger picture. And yet, the full moon of yesterday is about gathering the bigger picture. So it's more planned chaos and confusion, David. And yes, when you slow things down in certain areas, it does facilitate scanning each person if you are looking for someone. Now, who would anyone be looking for? RT Intel, perhaps? RT Intel is our name for what is commonly known as AI, or artificial intelligence. And if RT Intel has to negotiate through all this or other, let's say, beings that they are looking for, it slows things down and allows certain people to stand in line and watch others. There's always many, many reasons for certain events. Now we'll go to Jean. What is your question, and welcome?
Thank you. This is Jean.
Good.
I was just wondering, we just touched on a little bit with the recent passing of this entertainer Prince.
Prince, yes.
I thought one of the other interesting things about the timing, when it was, and you can give us some feedback why it was important, or the significance of it being on Queen Elizabeth's birthday, why he would pass that day, or be facilitated that he passed that day. Because I thought it was interesting, he had recently broken with the traditional structure of the music industry with his recording publishing company, taking his power and control back over his music. He seemed to also be in a long phase of taking control back over his life in general, his thoughts and thinking. He started to sound like someone who was studying the information that you and your channel have been teaching for decades. He may have,
and didn't he have a photo of him with the word slave written on his face?
He did. And but another interesting thing, the day he died, he seemed to understand, he had long-standing issues with debilitating chronic pain, in which he had been relying on the medical community to manage. But he realized that was another maybe form of slavery. His body had become so conditioned and dependent on the drug he was taking he was taking steps to get himself off of it and maybe go in an alternative direction, which he had done for his diet. He was a vegan. He was perhaps looking for an alternative direction for his health care, his pain management, and he passed away the day before he was putting that plan into place. Alone, somewhat mysteriously, alone in his, compound where he lived.
We'll give a few comments here. Much of the entertainment industry, along with the sports industry, have been subjected to one form or another of MK Ultra mind control cult participation. It is nigh impossible, once you have been subjected for long-term brain fragmentation and programmed to be exceptional. Understand, MK Ultra does not simply create multiple personality disorder and many alters or different front personalities that can switch. And Prince was known for switching. He would go from the falsetto down to very deep singing. Switching is part of MK Ultra. It is like punching a different program on your computer. And MK Ultra, mind control to the ultra, is based on roughly understanding that the body is like a computer and stores various programs. And you can, if you are so programmed, someone can touch your little pinky and a different alter comes forward. Then someone touches your elbow and another alter comes forward. Nonetheless, it is nigh impossible to break out. Even you have a woman named Roseanne Barr. Do you remember her?
Yes.
She was responsible for what we call the slobification. We made that word up. The slobification of the lifestyle and the dress code in the U.S. So even Roseanne Barr, who claimed quite publicly, everyone's under MK Ultra mind control, I'm the only one that wants to talk about it. They're all frightened to death. Yes, because if you attempt to break out, you often can be killed. And Prince, let's say, was getting too smart for his britches. He was talented and smart enough and had enough public, let's say, backing and charisma to be an effective communicator. He was a threat, worth more dead than alive. And of course, as we've been pointing out, and Jean, you certainly were aware, that the window of sacrifice and volatility on the planet usually kicks in from April 15, through May 1. Remember that Chernobyl, 1986, blew in that window. Many, many, many volatile events have happened between April 15 and May 1. So Queen's birthday is one day after Hitler's birthday. Hitler's birthday is April 20th, and then the Queen, QE2, she's 90 on April 21. Then Earth Day is the next day. A few years ago in that window, you had the Deepwater Horizon blow up, etc. You've had so many things. So Prince, serendipitously, is demised in his own castle in Minnesota the same day the Queen having her birthday. What a coincidence. A prince dies on the Queen's birthday. And then the Queen, where does she go on her birthday? To Cairo, of all places. Cairo. Cairo that, in certain terms, it's understood that Cairo is Mars, named for Mars. And then, of course, it was not so long ago that at the death of Nelson Mandela, that it is reported that the Anunnaki god Marduk, Duke University down the road there, Marduk, the old Anunnaki god, son of Enki, was crowned king of Africa. at Mandela's memorial service. And then the Queen goes to Cairo, which is called Mars, on and around her birthday. And then a temple of Baal, right in that window, is Baal, meaning Marduk, is dedicated in London. Folks, climate change is afoot. David, what does that mean?
Big deceptions.
Climate change is code.
Return of...
The return of the Anunnaki and Nibiru.
Yes.
And this is why 200 countries, 190 some odd countries also met during that window. And they came to the UN. And they signed various treaties, and each one agreeing that climate change, from Obama on down to the Oscar winner, make the statement to the world: there is no more important issue in these times than climate change. And then Obama hops in his super polluting airplane and flies here, there, and everywhere. Airplanes pollute way more than your automobiles do. Anyone notice the disconnect? No, because everyone's too busy on the devices, looking at pornography, or watching their little kids take JonBenet Ramsey type lessons. What was appalling in the JonBenet Ramsey case 20 years ago, she's resurfaced on the tabloids, and her pictures are coming up, so we bring this up. What was appalling: to sexualize a 5 or 6 year old girl and to teach her how to do hoochie coochie dancing, we are being very polite here, is now commonplace. What has happened to your culture, friends? In front of your eyes. What has happened to your culture, and why do you allow it? We don't know if that's something you can answer, but it's certainly something that Prince eventually was attempting to convey. And of course, he was controlled from childhood. You must understand this, as many of these people are. When they are born poor and they have talent, they are taken into these programs, especially if they are abused. Abused children are very desirable. Why? Because they dissociate. And if you dissociate, then you are already a candidate for being programmed. Dissociation means you check out and cannot deal with the trauma. And if you are sexualized when you are a young child, of course you're going to check out. You don't know how to deal with it. You are supposed to be relying on parental authority and protection. All right, who else has a question?
Can I follow up real quick?
All right, go ahead.
What was the significance? I realized there must have been speaking to somebody that understood the significance of the color. That Prince was the purple one, but somehow on his death, it was like somehow the purple was being associated with Queen Elizabeth. It was very...
Purple is traditionally the color of royalty. And there was a time, Gina, this is a very good observation on your part, there was a time when it was not an easy color to produce. The reds could be produced from berries, do you understand? But purple was more elusive until a specific mollusk was discovered, not the octopus, but some other mollusk, that gave off a dark purple inky substance that was very, very rare and difficult to achieve. So in the business of fabrics and creating dyes, purple was reserved as a special color only for those of very high position, or one could say it was associated with the Anunnaki. So his whole concept of purple rain, even though he may have appealed to the masses and people thought he was fixing them and saving them, Prince was putting everyone under mind control who listened to his songs. He may be explaining what was going on, but understand, people, music puts you into a trance. And once you are into a trance, if you are not cognizant of what is going on, you may be having a good time, but you are being dumbed down. So what looked like he was liberating people, he was not. He was taking them further under control. Look at how they all mourned him. And what did he really achieve? And how many rock and rollers died this year? And everyone's acting as if these rock and rollers did something for the planet. What did they do? Does anyone want to answer that?
Don't they help by raising the vibration?
They didn't raise the vibration at all. They put you under mind-controlled trances. So to be fair, when all these people mourn the rock and rollers, you are mourning those who create music and lyrics that put you deeper into a trance so that you can't think. Wake up, people. Wake up. Who has a question?
Okay, I'm Dan.
Dan, welcome. Loud and clear. Really loud.
So, you're talking about the astrological positions right now and like the effects that they're going to have. And I was wondering if you all drew any connection between like Pluto being in Capricorn and like all this uprising going on. Because the last time Pluto was in Capricorn, the American Revolution happened, the French Revolution happened, and the Reign of Terror and all that.
You are, that's a good point that you are bringing up, and for the last 5 years, Dan it is, yes, we have been talking about this structural collapse and the uprising of people as the planet Uranus, which takes 84 years to zoom around the zodiac. So that means when you are 84 years old, Pluto or Uranus comes back to the place it was when you were born, and most people don't live past 84. Between 80, 84, 85, the energy is too much for them, because Uranus stirs things up, and it calls for revolution and change, and it is in the sign of Aries. It moved in the sign of Aries just minutes after the Fukushima disaster in Japan. So you have been in 5 years, 6 years, Uranus squaring Pluto. Uranus has moved off from the square, but you are in the after effects of revolution, rebellion, uprising, revolt, restiveness, rebelling against all authority. And then again, as you said, Capricorn, Pluto in Capricorn was last in this position during the American Revolution, because Pluto zooms around the zodiac. It takes 248, 250 years. The moon zooms around the zodiac in 28 days. Yes. Just, if you are aware, folks, you'd better understand the movements of the heavens, otherwise you're not very aware. And of course, the world does not want you to understand those movements, because then you would be smart. They want to keep you stupid looking at those devices. Now, so you are in, as a world, and certainly as the foundation of your country, you are in a Pluto return. It's not close yet, but it's closing in on it. You will find that your bacon is being fried. That is a polite way of saying it. Between 2021, 2022, 2025, it will be quite disastrous in this country. Many have said that whoever is elected in 2020 is going to be the pivotal person, that everything will fall down around. But we are not diminishing that this election is any different. You are in the beginning of redefining a country whose principles stand on independence and freedom. And of course, that is so far away from how most people are living today. Most people are looking for a handout. And if the handout the government check does not arrive, whether it's Social Security, disability, or some manner of extras, if it does not arrive, people cannot survive. And even more than that, studies have shown, Dan, that over half of America would be hard-pressed to come up with $400 or $500 for an emergency. They don't have that kind of cash hanging around. If you don't have $4 or $5 extra $100 stashed away for a mini emergency, you are not very aware. And if you are still living in poverty, and the government supporting you, and you've been investing in awareness, you're kidding yourself. You are delusional. And so this year, Dan, is going to, what you have that term, wheat from the chaff, men from the boys, however it goes, a sorting out, you know. Middle of June is going to be a huge test on real versus illusion. And a lot of people are going to spend an uncomfortable summer realizing that they have been invested in stupidity. And there's great potential for people smartening up, great potential. And but there's also, again, so much chaos and confusion ahead. And this is, again, part of the governmental breakup. Not just in the USA, but all over the world. As we said, the natives are restless. So how could this be avoided? It does not necessarily mean that because you are in a Pluto return, Pluto in Capricorn, if the country was honest, and everything was running smoothly, and people were encouraged to produce for themselves, to be responsible, to stop playing the role of victim, and I'm powerless to stop that, then the Pluto in Capricorn would be a reevaluation to a much higher level of Pluto transformation, life-death transformation, and Capricorn doing a good job with integrity, where there's honesty and integrity is the hallmark signature. Because you are nowhere near that, the Pluto return will probably create the splits and separation of America. You are already seeing it. Did not North Carolina stand up to Obama and the Justice Department and say that if you want to tell us what to do about bathrooms, it has to go through legislature. Your country is based on legislation, not on some manner of imperial decree that not only has Obama been guilty of, he's a constitutional lawyer, or so he says. He has stepped on all of your constitutional rights, as had every president for decades before him. Many say that the only president that was willing to stand up to things was who? JFK, exactly. And he had a laundry list, miles long, of cheating on his wife. So there you have someone wanting to do the right thing in terms of banking and CIA and exposure and UFO and all of this. But yet he was constantly belittling and betraying his wife. She was doing the same thing to him. So what do you think? It's all an illusion. One big glamour. You've been tricked by the media. Jackie and John standing there with their children pose as if everything's fine. You know, the last 100 years with photography, well, perhaps longer, since the 1860s or some such, photography, movies, all of this virtual reality, it has done nothing but confuse you. You are not the strong people and the clear thinkers and the visionaries that you used to be. Anything else, Dan?
That's it.
It's good that you understand astrology. Are you studying these things?
Yes.
Good. It is a good augmentation to understand cycles and patterns. And if you get good at it, it is always nice to be able to earn a living by baking pies or offering good advice. They are both very nurturing. You understand?
Yes.
Good. Who else has a question?
Naila.
Naila.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You are a smart lady.
Thank you. Thank you. Your vehicle mentioned that, of course, we should.
No shoulds.
We are to get rid of
Good.
cell phones and those digital devices.
Or at least use them minimally.
Absolutely. My question is, in terms of communicating with others that need to get this information, this liberating information that you have been dispensing, and I was thinking more specifically in terms of, say, the African American community that typically has its head in the sand, is very religious, and won't listen to anything that even sounds like astrology or anything like that.
Why do you think that is?
A lot of conditioning and in the DNA. You know, it's ingrained.
In the DNA, you are very right. It is ingrained, and yet all people can have a spark that can open them. And just to add this before you continue, years ago we said when we began our work on May 18th, we entered your reality just a few days ago, but 1988. And as people started waking up and showing up in droves, our vehicle, and we used to say, well, you are time-coded. And if everyone woke up at once, you could not be accommodated. Imagine a whole bunch of babies needing to be fed at once and only a few that can feed them. You follow?
Yes.
So even as you call the African-American black community, they may be very stuck. And they are conditioned and clustering together to protect each other and to assure each other we are safe, we are okay. It is like doing the familiar. But after a while, that too grows old, and they too will be time-coded when it's time to awaken. You follow this?
Yes.
What is your question now?
Well, basically, you've answered the question, because the question had to do with how do you communicate not using those vehicles? Everyone is everywhere, regardless of what nationalities we are, and we've taken to using the Facebooks and social medias and LinkedIn and so forth. Now we know that these things are just avenues for
they are actually, and all these things are designed to keep you in a 5th grade mentality. Can you remember 5th grade? Anyone? About 10 years old, 11 years old. You're not grown up yet, but the cliques and the who's who and this, and you want friends, but you're not sure who's going to be your friend, and it is all creating people, taking them back to more of an infantile, adolescent type behavior. So how does one communicate? First of all, if you have to have these devices, do not let them rule you. It's like having a drink. Can you have one drink without drinking the whole bottle? If you can't, and you are an alcoholic, then you have to admit it and put the darn cell phone away and get a landline and trust that when you are on the road that you can live without being constantly in touch with your family. This is all a social engineering game. Up until 10 years ago, everyone lived without being in touch all the time. People would go overseas for the summer and not talk to anyone because it was too much of a hassle to call. Now they can't go for 5 minutes. As soon as the airplane lands, hi, I'm landed. Hi, I'm going to the bathroom. Hi, I'm getting a hot dog. Hi, I've just ordered pizza instead. Oh, let me Yelp this pizza review here. They were terrible. This is stupid. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, now, it's very important to understand that everything that you learn, if you never say a word, you are broadcasting it. Everything that you are, you broadcast. That is why you get next to people who are weird and you say, "Ooh, that's a weird person, I don't want to be by them." They may never say a word. Everyone broadcasts who and what they are. As you become more aware, the energy starts to flow through you. And you vibrate, or you have a frequency that is a little quicker, it's more enhanced, it's a little more exciting, you would have a stronger aura, it would be in your energy field. And of course, the very best way to communicate with people is one-on-one, to have real conversations. And so, you know, the old-fashioned way used to be, "Hey, I came across this book. Here, read this book." People don't want to read books today. And so the globalists are very successful in getting you away from books, because you see, with a book, you use your imagination and you can stop and think. And you ruminate. And then you go into soft focus and you change your brain waves. And this, of course, is very exciting. You could have people over for discussions and start to call in the higher forces and say, "I want to help other people. I ask that my guides and higher forces of good intention from other dimensions work through me to help me facilitate the awakening and the awareness of others. And I ask that they find me, and that I am guided to speak to the right people at the right time." Start small, and start with the idea that you are going to help people feel empowered and feel successful, whether they manifest $10 extra, or whether they make it through the winter without being sick because they decide they don't need to be sick anymore, because they understand, you mean I can believe I'm going to be well and I will be well? Instead of believing, "Oh, I'm probably going to get sick this winter because the flu's going around." And then you build on your intentions and your reputation. And you use the devices selectively, to augment what you are doing. You follow this?
I do.
Because you see, when you are on the devices and you send people things on the devices to read all this stuff, and they read the devices and watch the devices, they don't stop and ruminate and think. The devices throw you into a programmable trance. Your brainwave cycles reduce, as you see on the chart here. And instead of being in a higher vibration thinking, you go into the TV programmable state. Just so that you understand, our vehicle a few classes ago read some of the quotes about the inventors of TV in the early 50s, and they said, "Wow, we never imagined that it would be so effective, but I would never let my children near it." How do you like that? And then someone else, a president of a university, said, in the 50s, some of you were not even born then, he said, "If we continue with this type of programming, we are headed for an ignorant, dumbed-down country." That was the innocent programs in the 50s he was commenting about. What about the trash? The sexual trash? The movie stars, the music, all of this trash that people gravitate to towards entertainment. You know what people used to do for entertainment? Women would get together, make things, do things, and talk. And then they would see, after they chatted and had a good time, that there was something that they made. That is a hint. Get people to make things again, whether it is potluck suppers, that everything has to be cooked from scratch, not running to the store to bring a bag of chips. Or to get people together and make things and have discussions about the changing world. You will attract the people. Absolutely. They are ready. Do you understand?
Yes.
People, especially people of color, are ready to understand that you have been sold a bill of goods as victims. And yes, you participated in a huge movement of slavery. Huge. But you know, there's a man today who wrote a book. His name is Michael Tellinger. and he wrote a book called Slave Species of the Gods. His contention, it has very valid point, is that everyone on the planet, in some manner or another, is a slave of these sky gods. And these sky gods are the creators of every religion on the planet. And most of your religions have you praying to a cross. Well, these sky gods, the name of their planet is Nibiru, but also planet X, which is also a cross. And their planet is known as the planet of the crossing. So there's not a religion out there that is not calling in and praying to these devious Anunnaki. Better think about this. Yes. Cucumbers. They might be a good thing to get together, make a batch of cucumbers or pickles. Easy, quick, inexpensive, nourishing, fun. You can have good conversations around something simple like a pickle.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
You talked about the sky gods, and what do anything might that have to do with the movie being a new movie coming out called Independence Day, The Resurgence? Is that maybe pointing to the so-called return of Nibiru?
That's a very good point. Someone else brought that up recently. Was it Jean or someone that was a teacher? Actually, it was Marcella. And she was bringing up the idea a couple classes ago that all these invasion type or E.T. movies are coming out. And she teaches young children, and the young children are very frightened and confused. So yes, movies, the Hollywood industry is run by the military and by many what you consider to be Jewish people. There's a great agreement there to condition people for what's coming, and there's plenty of speculation that if it's not the return of Nibiru, then you are certainly dealing with the return of something that is about regime change and recognizing that there are forces that will appear, whether it's sooner or later, and this could be a 50-year window, just so that you understand this, or a 25-year window, let's say, to reveal to the world some type of rulership. Of course, it will all be very deceitful because the Anunnaki have a history of pants on fire. That's the best way to say it. We call it the Pinocchio effect as well. In other words, they're not honest with you. And of course, part of the genetic engineering that has happened to all people is a dumbing down or a tweaking of your psychic abilities, your ability to read someone and to know exactly if they're lying to you or telling you the truth. This is the greatest restoration that is required, so that you do not fall prey or sway to your political leaders who continuously lie to you and deceive you. And if you can't figure out which political leaders are lying, how are you going to do it when these gods show up? And they may show up as superhumans. Speaking of movies, all of these superhero movies with these super abilities, these are also running two programs. Programs that are affirming to you there are beings that have capabilities beyond the normal human. And number two, the genetic engineering of super beings, whether they are artificial intelligence or what's considered to be super soldiers. And then, of course, there is the secret space program that is already employing men and women with advanced capabilities, but these advanced capabilities are put in as weapons. It is the weaponization of humans that is around the corner. Best buckle up, and get really clear, folks. You are not stuck in a doomsday scenario. When you get clear and you see through things, you help pop the bubbles of illusions. And believe it or not, you can be having a pickle party, and you have 10 people over, and they all got their cucumbers, and you are going to make dill pickles and sweet pickles, and you're talking about world-changing events, and you're doing something, and you're laughing and having a good time making these pickles, and putting out a vibration. And once you figure things out, and people go, that's what's going on, wow, that's what's going on, those frequencies go out, even to the heart of capitals around the world. And then they change the course of events. This has been the contention of our work, that in the quietude of your own bed, thinking, you change the world. Because as you start to awaken, you are not going to be fleeced, at least from the things you are realizing. And that puts out a very big signal. And the more people who start to realize things, you change the probable course of events, meaning that there is no predetermined future that everyone is stuck in. However, understand that you are not going to change the seasons, and if Nibiru is headed in, you are not going to suddenly erase it from the skies. But what you do is you change how you deal with things. So in other words, if it's a summer day and you say, I am so powerful, I'm going to turn this summer day into winter. You are not. This is delusional. So everyone, be very aware of where you delude yourself into what you think you are going to change. Yet we are telling you, you do change things all the time by simply thinking about things and seeing through them. Does this help everyone?
Yes. Yes.
Good. Any other questions?
Please.
Who is it? Loud and clear.
Please, this is Jeannie. How does
Jeannie, all right, welcome.
Thank you. How does Scientology fit in to all this?
Well, if you look at Scientology, they are using the same Anunnaki code systems. You understand? Mm-hmm. And L. Ron Hubbard, who was the founder of Scientology, he claimed that you are controlled by another planet, and the gold was so important, and they've got a gold center in Hemet, California. And it is deep manner of mind control, very, very deep, with rewards, of course. They talk about getting audited and getting really clear. It is another branch. It came out of the post-World War II era. What would it be, 60 years ago or some such? The World War II era, atom bomb, all of this, Nikola Tesla on the planet. There was a big battle for who was giving who information. And do not think that smart people sit around and invent things. Certainly, whether you are a physicist or theoretical this or that, or a mathematician or a radio astronomer, once you have a predilection for studying such things, the forces out there give you ideas. It is not so much different than we coming through our vehicle and speaking to you, although our vehicle does this very publicly. Many people receive ideas from unknown forces, and they think it's their idea, or they keep quiet about being told to do something, or shown something, or they're given it in a dream. And good forces against other forces that may be not so good will battle it out, and the non-physical, in your terms, to see who they can manipulate and control as a marionette in the physical. And this Scientology, a form of MK Ultra, would have come out of the same window, Jeannie. And it is banned in Germany, you know, which is very interesting. And more exposés are coming out. You know, lots of people will sell their soul just to have wealth and fame. This is very, very big in the Hollywood movie industry. Many people know they are compromised. They don't care. And many people lead a lifestyle that they don't want the world to know about. So they are perfect to be set up as a puppet. And then their lifestyle is secretly supported. Who else has a question?
This
Yes.
is Dorsey.
Dorsey, welcome.
I know a while back you had mentioned about heroin is going to be the next. It's going to be the biggest thing that's going to be I guess destroying people.
Yes.
And I read an article the other day. They're talking about how they said children now more vulnerable than ever to heroin, and they said a lot of them are being tricked at the age of 8 with heroin. They said make sure that parents don't let them take any candy, or to let the kids know if the candy is not wrapped or sealed good, do not take it. And they
So
also,
heroin is being laced onto candy.
right. And they said also that statistically that 12 years old is now the average age for the first exposure to heroin for children.
Well, Dorsey, as usual, you've done your homework and you always bring up a painful situation that is occurring in society that many want to ignore. So we salute you for that. Now, a few things going on here. Heroin addiction is definitely on the rise, and you understand that this heroin comes from the poppy plant. And it was George Bush #1 who was called Poppy. And he began this incursion, as you well know, into the Middle East, Afghanistan, Pakistan, all of this, and it appears that then his son took up the bandwagon, George Bush too, and now you have soldiers guarding poppy fields all over that part of the world, and the reason there's so much war and contention there is because this is where the heroin comes from. And in the Vietnam Wars, they were bringing back drugs from Vietnam in body cavities. And of course, this was discovered and created all manner of problems, which we will not go into now, but certainly there were stories about the Dr. McDonald and all of this who found that out. He's still in prison to this day, accused of killing his family because he figured out the drug trade. It's coming from the far regions there, and this is why the soldiers are there to protect and guard the poppy gardens. Now, parents have become too disconnected from their children. They want to be liked by their children, so they give their children everything they want. Cell phones, much TV, TV's in the room. Now, it's so common today, it's not even considered a treat, but in the 50s, if you had a TV in your room, you had to be a multimillionaire. Do you understand? Today, everyone's got screens, unmonitored. They can look at pornography all they want, but they don't even have to. They can just turn the TV on, the movies, and watch the degradation, and parents are too busy talking to their friends on cell phones to even understand what the children are doing. The breakup of the family has been completely successful. And of course, as these things usually work, there will be a boomerang effect, a blowback effect, and many people will start to recognize that there's no future ahead unless you really start making some rules and taking some responsibility for yourselves and your children. Heroin at 8 years old. Listen, heroin at any age is a ruinous situation. And all you have to do is look in the newspapers now and again to look at the obituaries. And once in a while, a family will have the courage to say, our deceased child a beautifully deceased white child often, at 22 to 26 years old, did themselves in with heroin, drug overdose. Very, 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 very common. And a shame, of course. But good parenting starts from the time children are born. And today, everything in society wants to separate the family and teach children to confront their parents, to sue their parents, even. So, these are important things to look at. But the bigger thing is, what are you going to do about it? What else, Dorsey? What other important things have you come across? Because we have about 2 minutes left.
Well, I remember I read this article about, just a statement. There was a sign that said about, we do not have Wi-Fi. It was at a restaurant or a small business. And they said, we do not have Wi-Fi.
They announced that?
And they had a sign that said, we do not have Wi-Fi, talk to each other.
You see, this is the good news. This is the good news. This is why our vehicle says no devices in here. Meet each other, talk to each other. If you are so busy that you can't go for a few hours without a device, you don't need to sit in our classes or to be around us. You are nuts. We have an even better view of it because we can see the cognitive failure. And, there are studies that are being done all over the world, but they're being covered up, about the use of Wi-Fi, which our nickname for, what is it called, Wi-Fi. Our other nickname is Wi-Fi, that is more appropriate, Wi-Fi. Studies are showing that if you operate one of these Wi-Fi devices before 20 years old, yipes, right? You will never fully develop your brain. And what are they doing in all the schools? Bill Gates, computer, Wi-Fi computer in front of every child. This is all to create this cognitive failure. And when you have people who can't think and can't critically think and question, then you have slaves. Actually, it's volunteer. Be a slave. Volunteer to be a slave. So that you don't think, but that you become an unquestioning worker, not even capable of thinking or critically or even politely inquiring about inconsistencies.
Someone cares.
This is called cognitive failure. All right, let's have, though, a cognitive, exciting recess now. And we'll give you about 15-20 minutes and then come back for the second part of this afternoon's double header. All right, the gong is reverberating. We are here once again to continue this afternoon's double header, as we've called it. So, you have questions on recess here about the political nonsense, and Hillary, we call her Shrillery. We like nicknames now and again, and she is rather shrill, has difficulty modulating her voice. And then there is the burn, all right? So there's the hill, the shrill, the burn, and then the trumpet. And as Jean was saying, what choice do you have? And of course, this is what the globalists want you to think you have choice, because Donald Trump represents the people's voices, remember. This is who the people want, not who the party wants, but what the people wants. So what you are seeing is a lot of posturing, a lot of pretending, a lot of acting as if while the people are taking over, they want the trumpet and there's nothing we can do about it. Understand something. A person recently, perhaps someone who would be in the know, stated that the trumpet would never have been able to succeed and go this far if the military, some branch of the military, and some branch of the alphabets were not behind him. We would say, from our point of view, you are in a coup. Some may call it a silent coup, a quiet coup, a covert coup, a confusing coup, but you are in a coup. A coup is a takeover of sorts. And there was a big coup in this country around 2011. The 9/11 events were absolutely a taking over, not only of the mass consciousness, but of certain aspects of the USA and world governments. And then on the first part, we were talking about this coercion into climate change, and climate change being a bit of a code for the potential arrival, incoming chaos and destruction that a planetary body could possibly create with its large tail of detritus as it enters your solar system. Hence, as many have come to speculate, the impetus to build massive underground complexes all over the world. So, what choices do you have? What do these people really represent? Who wants to make some comments on this? Because this is very relevant to what's on everyone's mind. Jean, you want to start?
Can you rephrase what the question you're asking?
Just a commentary on what the political situation is presenting to people.
Well, for me, it's just presenting something where, you just really stop and take a look at, ideally that may not be what's intended, but, just what is going on between these two people. Like, why is this who we have left seemingly to choose from?
That's a good way.
Like there's nobody that you can get, even if you don't maybe ideologically or politically really agree with him, at least you say, well, at least he's decent people. You say, oh, at least that's a decent person. I respect his opinions. But there's just something else, like these people, it's like they're both so weird. It's like what is going on?
Well, it is true. Hillary can get up and blatantly lie. She announces herself as, I'm a real person. That's a very strange thing to say when she doesn't even know how to drive a car. That's out of touch with reality. How could you be the champion of regular people when you yourself don't drive, don't know how to drive, don't know how to, let's say, do some of the very basic things, let alone the number of lies that have been attributed to her, and the criminal things that go back to the early years when she first met up with Bill, and they were two, let's say, high-flying, high-intended selectees. It was arranged marriage, and it was planned way back that they would be put in position in Arkansas and then eventually into the White House, because they both came from not much money, so to speak, not like the other entitled, let's say, sons and daughters of patricians. They were eager to please. And of course, they both had sexually ambiguous activities in their life that they wanted to hide. They were perfect to be blackmailed. There's plenty of evidence that even the child that they claim to have together is not Bill's daughter. So deceit all the way around. And then the bigger question is, as you look at symbols, how have a country that prides itself on choice and freedom and bravery and all of this create a situation where you have a communist, Bernie is pretty much of a communist, Everything he's promoting is a form of socialism or communism. And if you study communism and socialism all around the world, you begin to realize that everything for free, no mortgages, and no free education, and free this and free that, after a while it doesn't create a very high standard of living, because if everyone's going to have something for free, everything has to be scaled back so that everyone gets equal. You understand? Equal. So it's big social engineering, and Donald put himself into position through his own money, but there's more going on. As Jean, you found that he first ran for president on The Simpson Show in his own Trump Tower escalator. So one has to question that. Who else has a comment on the political situation?
This is Christopher.
Christopher, yes, welcome.
Thank you. Hi. I just want to add to the trumpet's qualities as president. He's the owner of the Miss America pageant.
Yes, Miss America.
Which would suggest that he's part of
Yeah,
that.
Miss USA.
Miss USA, thank you. So he's part of that, how do you say, drafting candidates into the MK Ultra trade, the sex trade.
Yes, because there's a tremendous amount of placement of beauty contest winners then becoming girlfriends or wives of other people who are deeply under MK Ultra, but they might all start off vaguely programmed, and so you can follow this tracking everywhere. That's a good point. What else, Christopher?
Also to be remembered is that he owns casinos and hotels well, across the United States, but principally in Atlantic City.
Atlantic City, so gambling.
Gambling, and I would imagine that offers the opportunity to, when he receives high-profile people in those hotels, to know what they're doing.
Well, of course, because in today's high-profile hotels, in other words, $500 a night and upward, you are going to have very sophisticated surveillance.
So, as a type of power broker.
The trumpet has the dirt. He's got the films, he's got the recordings, and once again, being part of a, quote, silent or quiet coup is a better word, a quiet coup, he does not have this momentum and this kind of backing if he didn't have some insider encouragement, protection, etc. As was said, he could only go this far with backing by certain branches, and the operative word here is certain, branches of the military and the intelligence agency. And we will say this because these military and intelligence agencies are largely populated by the male species. What testosterone charged up man wants to take orders from Shulery? Truly, these people are career people. They're not going to take orders from someone like her. She is detested far and wide by people who truly want to restore America's values. So this is, what else, Christopher?
Yeah, I've lost the thread there, but you have me thinking now about the divisiveness in our culture, and the male-female division is being pushed forward.
Very much so, because there it is, Hillary claiming to be a woman's champion, yet going after viciously like a pit bull. That's not fair to the pit bull, but we'll use it anyways. Going after the women who are appalled at Bill's behavior. So she's a fierce attack dog. And then number two, you have the trumpet, who then feels quite comfortable slamming women and looking at them as sexual beings. So yes, women and men would be very confused as to who's on whose side. And so they are being very divisive, very, very divisive. And Bernie, what do you think of Bernie, Christopher?
I don't understand. I think he's thrown in to appease.
Oh yes, he's the catcher.
Yeah.
To make sure that a certain batch of the voting population feels that they are being heard. Understand this? Yes. And many of his points are completely legitimate. It's just that he will never be able to execute them. And he's a socialist. And again, as we've said, whether it is Sweden, Norway, Denmark, whether you are talking communism in Venezuela or Cuba or Soviet Union, Russia, whatever it is called now, it doesn't work. Because it is attempting to make everyone feel as if they are taken care of by the state. And the last thing you need to do is to have a nanny state that you are dependent on. It weakens your volition. Because you see, it's one thing to have someone give you a car, put you through college, pay for your wedding, pay for everything, versus the self-improvement to go after it on your own, and the satisfaction and the reward that comes from doing the job yourself because you want it and you work for it. There's a tremendous amount of gratification and confidence that comes to people who achieve, even small things. When you take achievement away and you give everyone the same pablum, which is what Bernie wants, then the whole society is disempowered. And remember, Bernie spent his honeymoon in Moscow. How many people aim to go spend their honeymoon in Moscow? Well, Moscow's lovely, but nonetheless, Bernie is a comrade. So be clear about that Bernie would represent higher taxes, more and more intrusion of government, and then you want the government to stand up to Wall Street. It's ridiculous. The government is Wall Street. It's not going to stand up to Wall Street. So Bernie, with bringing up good ideas, is still deluding people. So you have, as you said, no choices. What else, Christopher?
Well, one last thing about the trumpet. Early on, he brought out a campaign kind of imagery. It was very, on the surface, very patriotic. There was an American flag blowing in the breeze and his portrait.
He does have Venus, we believe, in Cancer. So that's very patriotic if you understand the astrology.
And layered within this imagery was a soldier marching behind, in the background, marching behind the flag. As it turns out, the company that put that imagery together for his campaign used a Nazi soldier in the background. And
how did they make that mistake?
well, that's a very good question. It was blamed on a young graphic designer who was fired.
The young always get blamed.
But having worked in graphic design myself, I know that that's not what happens. The image would have been vetted.
Of course.
It has to be agreed upon.
Of course.
But it makes a very easy fall guy to blame it on the young graphic designer.
Well, let's recapitulate. You have someone who is a socialist communist, the Bern. You have the Shrill, who is criminal. And then you have the trumpet, who is, let's say, leaning towards fascism. None of these situations really embody what your country is all about. And just to give a little more snippet on the trumpet, he seems to always look for explosive topics. And recently, a few days ago, he gave an interview with a commentator by the name of Sean Hannity. And in this interview, as the Hannity person was recapitulating Bill Clinton's crimes against women and all these allegations, as the host is going on naming the allegations, Trumpet pipes up with rapist. And on the mainstream news, millions of people, Trump reiterates that Clinton is a rapist. Then another show, we believe it was Rush or some such, right around the same time, goes on to say how Bill Clinton had many undocumented trips to Porno Island. It's not the name of it, but it's got some name there, that this convicted pedophile named Jeffrey Epstein has an island in the Bahamas, the old peaks of Atlantis, where he brings in world leaders to have sex with young girls, and probably boys and all the rest. And that Bill Clinton has been cited as making too many trips to this Porno Island. And this is coming out on mainstream situations. It's getting nasty. It's getting very, very nasty. And yet, it's the truth. It's the truth. It's not an exaggeration. It's actually an understatement of how dark the political scene is. Caution, confusion ahead. That's basically the warning that we are providing today. Caution, confusion ahead. No matter what you think something is, it could be completely switched around.
May I offer?
Yes, go ahead.
May I offer one? Under the George W. Bush years, I think most of us became aware that Cheney was influential in creating the policy of that administration.
Yes, in other words, he was really behind the scenes running the show.
And I suspect that we're being offered this dismal choice, but the person who will really be in power will be either a Secretary of State, a Vice President, or some other person in that cabinet. Whoever is elected, it doesn't really matter. We should look at whatever the cabinet that person puts together, or vice presidential candidate, or someone else who is actually controlling the power.
That would seem logical, and yet logic does not always rule the day in these coming times. Again, the trumpet may be settled upon and used to create a certain agenda that is far beyond the trumpet's understanding of reality. He is not super sophisticated on policy. And he's only having meetings now that are informing him of things. And there are many workings, inner secret workings inside the USA that he would be completely outside the loop of. Hillary may know certain things, but she does as she is told. She is a complete obeyer. Do you understand?
Yes.
She follows to the T and will not rebel. And then there is the other contention, too, that the O's despise the C's. That's the Obamas and the Clintons. They really don't care for one another. And even recently, Biden came out and said, a few days ago when Hillary was having her not so very good week, that actually was terrifically terrible, Biden comes out and says, makes an announcement and says, well, I was supposed to be running for president. Let's just say that Hillary may not be the candidate that is running this autumn. There's potential for big, big shakeups. And there are lots of people who do not want the trumpet to win. And they feel desperate about it, no political aside, but their whole game would be over in certain terms. Again, this is the quiet coup. So expect the unexpected, expect chaos ahead. The conventions will be full of turmoil, and there will be areas that will create violence, that will have troops, and it looks like an exceptionally disruptive, unruly summer. Not just for travel, but here in the USA, very angry people. Very, very angry, because there will be Mars retrograde into Scorpio. Mars goes into Scorpio by end of this month, and then it spends June, July in Scorpio, revealing some very, very unsavory parts of world government. All right, who else has a question?
Someone cares, Brother Ali.
Who is it?
Someone cares, Brother Ali.
Brother Ali?
Yes.
All right. What's your question, Brother Ali?
What this Democratic election says to me, it reminds me of the movie The Fall of the Roman Empire.
Yes.
And at the end of the movie, they couldn't find nobody who even wanted to really take over the society. And what I see now is
a repetition.
Yes, of that movie. And so they just went out and picked anybody. And Donald Trump, he acts like he really don't even want to win, and he don't think he's going to win. But next, they might even hire dishwashers and stuff like that for the next time. It just looks like, you know, it's not about this whole thing that we're looking at. It's got to be a card under the table that nobody don't see.
Oh, you are very smart.
Yes.
We like that. There's got to be a card under the table that no one is seeing. A perfect, brotherly, a perfect description of the Saturn-Neptune square. Some trickery going on that no one is really cognizant of, and that everybody, including the politicos, could all end up being stooges. Do not think that these people that are running are in the know. They are just as much in the dark and in confusion as everyone else, because you have interdimensionals, you have then puppet masters, you have beings that pass themselves off as humans, but they are actually extraterrestrials running the government. So this is a very good point. And Donald Trump, many say he did it as a lark. He didn't expect to win, and he represents the anger of the people. And he is a Gemini, as we've said, and Geminis have two sides. They are the twins. So they can be two-faced, or they can have two personalities. It can be very dark, or it can just be someone who's loquacious and then quiet. But it has two personalities. And as we've mentioned time and again, Donald has the North Node, the head of the dragon, conjunct his sun. So this is destiny for him. And then he has Uranus there. So he is a loose cannon. There's no controlling this man. No one, including the trumpet himself, can control him. He is extra spontaneous, and he surprises himself even in that regard. So he is the voice of people who are really angry. He is articulating the anger of people, and that is why he is succeeding. Will they allow him to succeed? Caution, confusion ahead. It's the best we can say. The probabilities tend to get very convoluted this summer. All right, Brother Lee, anything else?
I think that the reason why they're playing the alien card is because they recognize that they're going to have to sit down and let somebody smarter run the house.
In what way?
In the way that we know that there are entities that are much smarter than them, and maybe they have decided it's time for them to sit down now and let them come in and take over.
The aliens you are referring to, the
Yes.
celestials.
Yes.
Well, it's a good speculation on your part, and back to the Roman Empire, understand that history does repeat itself, and that certain patterns come around again if to teach, to learn, and to make choices. So not only are you looking at fiddling while Rome burns, the fall of the Roman Empire, but you are also looking at the recreation of the weirdness of Atlantis, where sexual depravity was very high, where genetic engineering was used to create sex slaves. This is going on today, where genetic engineering was used to create human-animal hybrids for sexual pleasure, for servants, for all manner of circuitry, circus, meaning circuitry in that regard, circus entertainment. So you are in the recreation and the fall of many cultures that need to be expressed. And people remember because it is encoded in your DNA. To live on Earth and to have a human body, or even to be a leaf, a simple leaf, when you take life form or even form of inorganic matter on the Earth, you take on the story of Earth. And if each of you humans were smart enough, you would be able to pick up any object on the Earth and tap into its story. That's another aspect of development. All right, so Brother Lee is speculating that in the big mess that's coming, could ETs come out and be the ones who make a higher order for the humans? It's
Well,
cool.
I think that the knowledge that you're given to the people now is going to create a superior mind, and since the mind that has been running for so long is decreasing in its capacity to figure out the problems, the new minds that are going to be coming from your teachings, from the teachings of all that are here helping us now, are going to create a new kind of thinking, and they, I believe, will take over those positions, and one day we will see, a better world like you teach.
That is one of the very best testimonies to life and to our work that we've ever heard. Thank you for that, because you have a positive picture that allows the grace of awakening and evolution to humankind. There will be fallout, and a lot of people will not be able or will not relate to the type of responsibility that we are calling for. But we see it not because we decree it, but we see this as the only way you as a species will thrive, is to become aware, accept responsibility, and see through the illusion, the glamour, and outgrow the need to worship the Anunnaki. This is what it's coming to. And then to be able to, most importantly, we say this again and again, but to embrace your humanity, that which makes you human, that gives you a heart, that gives you a brain with clear thinking, a belly with strong intuition that gives you guidance, and a heart that is compassionately fair and with empathy to understand what it's like to be in someone's shoes, but not to then fall into their shoes. There is justice and tough love, to use that term, that is required to make it through the times.
This is David again.
Yes, David.
I watched a film with your vehicle and with Sue a while back. I saw half of it about the alleged existence of massive underground facilities all over the world. And then there's been some speculation that you can drive from Denver to Washington, D.C. and be totally underground. And that's where a lot of the money that's been going into these black budgets has been going. The question that I have is, how can that be created without people, popping up on the surface saying, "Oh, I've been laying concrete under Omaha for the last 3 years." Have they used hybrid workers? Have they used RD Intel? Have they used, you had spoken of some of the Atlean things of half animals, half humans. I guess my question is, how could that be accomplished without that information getting out there? Because that would take a lot of people.
This is wonderful thinking on your part. The film that David is referring to, it is called Incoming. You can buy the DVD set from, we believe it is bobfletcher.com, about $25, 4 hours of eye-popping info. To be fair, it's not super professional, and too many misspellings about Nibiru and Anunnaki, etc. But there's more of an urgency on the part of the researchers to get the data out rather than to cross every T, etc., and dot every I. So there's, it's a presentation. And as David's pointing out, trillions of dollars have been disappearing for a long time, many trillions. The man does not mention how many trillions go into the secret space program, but he covers the, 30-year, 40-year, 30-some-odd year. This massive investment in underground facilities that would literally take many thousands of people to do this kind of work, to lay this concrete, to be present for this kind of inner work on the earth. And understand this is happening all over the globe. It is said that Norway has very, very, of course Norway is filled with mountains, and it has very, very sophisticated, deep underground facilities for world leaders. Russia is doing the same, China is doing the same, and these, USA is doing this, and these are the known countries. So how do they keep blue-collar workers from talking? Because most people, they come home from a tough day of work and they say, "You won't believe what I've done," and this and this. Well, so it shows you that there would be people deep under mind control that would be involved in this kind of work, and that they would not simply be taking vows of silence and signing contracts and up for lawsuits, because all it would take was a whole bunch of them for talk. So there are facilities that these people stay in underground, and they are fed, they are housed, and just like in Total Recall, the movie back there from 1990 or some such, false memories are often inserted. Later on, the person may suffer mental breakdown, confusion, Alzheimer's, lots of things. It's also possible to put a chip or some manner of implant in the workers through vaccinations or some such many ways that people will allow themselves to be under control because they're told they have to, but you have a big job here and we're going to pay you $100,000 a year, $75,000 a year. Lots of people, especially blue-collar workers, would do anything to earn that kind of money. They say goodbye to the wife and kids. I've got to go work, not sure what it is, and they are under complete control. Would there then be hybrid artificial workers that would have been bred for this? An army of cyborgs, is that the word we are looking for? Cyborgs, probably. That's a distinct reality for certain, that this genetic engineering and making of fake people and housing them inside of mountains or underground is a distinct reality. The other interesting aspect of this DVD that we want to comment on that was rather eye-popping was the methodology that he, the researcher, and others have sort of decoded. And one of the things they discovered was that the crop circles, which were mostly throughout the last 30 years or more, delivered to a certain area in England. And it wasn't the Yorkshire Plains, of which there's plenty of rolling territory. It was the Salisbury Plain in southern England, between, let's say, what would be Devizes, Salisbury, this area, all surrounded by military complexes, high military zone. And year after year, mind-boggling, figures would appear in the fields of wheat, the fields of barley, etc. So they were called crop circles. The English people look down upon them. They think they're nothing. Of course, they are conditioned and told to ridicule them. Farmers are told to plow the fields down. But what came out in the DVD, the second one, you didn't see this one, David, it was announced that ETs, of course they've been attributed to the makers of these circles, ETs would contact the military and say, we're going to be delivering a blueprint. The blueprint would be delivered in the form of the crop circle, which look 3D. The military, which completely encompasses the surrounding many, many miles of area farmlands that are all leased from the Crown. Farmers don't generally own these lands, they're Crown lands. The military then would fly over, photograph the markings, and then the farmers would be told to plow them under and take them down. And what was pointed out was that these would be engineering designs to build sophisticated space tools, equipment, rocketry, the rover for Mars, a design of the wheel for the Mars rover was delivered in a crop circle. Now what this implies is that the military all over the world is working very covertly with some manner of celestials. And they are being given instructions of what to build and the blueprints of how to build it. And then what they're building is being shipped into space. What it means is that space visitors, rather than setting up their own tool and die factories, formats on the moon or Mars, They've had you set it up, and then they give you the instructions. And then you build it and deliver it into space for them. Huge betrayals. Huge compartmentalization. How many people in the military understand this? Very few. This was a very big deal for this to be outed. People, it's unfolding very fast before your eyes. And Brother Lee is correct on this ET issue, is that as chaos breaks out, we've mentioned that there may be a unifying factor that will be presented. Fake, of course, but a unifying factor. Perhaps some ETs will come and say, you are being invaded by dark forces, we want to help you. But whatever it is, people are going to have a very difficult time checking their devices to look for the truth. The truth will be a combo, and you will find it between your brain, your heart, and your belly. Remember that. With the belly probably giving you the strongest truth. So what else, David?
That's it. I defer to Jean because I think she had a...
I forgot. We've been talking a while. Well, this is another thing about Trump. I just think if, however long he does continue, I think he's going to become very interesting because he's already put the word out. It's like, yeah, I basically say, I did what I needed to do to use the path I needed to take if I wanted to get to this point, like be primed to become an actual nominee. He said, yeah, but come November, if I actually do get the nomination, you're going to see a whole different Trump because then I'm going to be doing what I need to do to have a chance of actually getting elected. So I'm going to be dumping all these people that
Listen,
used to get to this point.
Politicians, whether they're experienced or not, they know the game is promise everything and then deliver nothing.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And so where this really is going is that no matter who gets elected, even if there's some sort of conundrum that's presented and Obama deems himself imperial president forever or something because of some chaos or confusion, no one's going to be happy. Come middle of November, there's going to be, even if the people who fervently back their candidate wins, they are still going to be very unhappy because no one can deliver. No one will deliver. And you are on the brink of financial ruin. As we speak, gold is being hoarded around the planet. The dollar is being devaluated and dumped. The U.S. bond market, the bonds are being traded at sometimes 40 or 50% of value. The Chinese have come in and stepped on everyone. Even the Queen said she had a meeting with Chinese delegates recently, and unfortunately or fortunately, perhaps the Queen is no fool, you must understand this. On an open mic, you know what that is. It means supposedly the mic's off, but it's really on. On an open mic, the Queen of England declared that the Chinese delegates that came to visit her were very rude. Now, there's one person you are never supposed to step your toes onto. You're not even supposed to touch her. The rigmarole and protocol for the Queen is the same rigmarole and protocol that the Anunnaki require. The Pope used to require this kind of rigmarole, but not this guy. This guy wants to get down and boogie with the masses. But he's not who he says he is either in terms of the Papal Center. Because remember, Vatican is the Anunnaki Center for worship. London is the Anunnaki Center for money. And Washington is the Anunnaki Center for military might. These three groups are united. So for the Queen to say that the Chinese were rude, she wanted that out. And the Chinese they will do anything to create world hegemony, while their people are being poisoned. The pollution in China is extravagant. The Chinese rulership, the Communist Party, which makes up about 5 or 6% of China, they do not care about the people. The people live crowded in small houses. They're all on the streets. They have no place to really live. They have closets, apartments that they share that are sometimes 40 stories, 80 stories off the ground. Or else you live in the country and you are a farmer and there's no toilets. Water is polluted everywhere because of mining, because of certain practices, because of toxic chemicals. So China rising to world power is a delusion, because they will step on the heart and soul of every Chinese person. And the Chinese people are very limited in their scope of understanding the world. Remember, many of your fake sites and devices are not even allowed in China, so they cannot even sort out the info from the disinfo. So there's big problems. Some say that there are forces from the east, and they are called the White Dragons. Perhaps you have heard this term, or you will hear more about it. They are called the White Dragons. And they are wanting to restore balance, at least as the story goes. But again, these Asian white dragons will care nothing for their people. It is all about power. And they are against the Western world hegemony. But these forces, whether they call themselves dragons or not, you are looking at reptilian Anunnaki gods revisiting Earth, using their progeny, their artificial intelligence, their people, to terraform the human genome and to terraform Earth herself. You are being deemed redundant. Do you know what that means? When you are deemed redundant? Lay off, fired, exactly. Unnecessary. Redundant is, sorry, we don't need you. And of course, because the humans have rebuilt the space program for the Anunnaki, or branches of the Anunnaki, once that space program is up and running, once the underground is built, we would say this. Do you really think that a whole bunch of world leaders who are psychotic and crazy are going to get along in exclusive underground hideaways?
No.
Out of sunlight and not being on the surface for years at a time. They are so used to manipulating, they won't know what to do with one another. And who are the slaves that are going to take care of them in this underground world? Most of these people don't know how to sneeze in a tissue. So think about it this way. Could it be that some forces who are known to be disingenuous, that means liars, forces put ideas into the military's head that you had better be really careful and prepare because the whole earth is going to be destroyed. So you get these people to build and build and build and build in preparation not for regular people but only for the elite. And then you get a signal and the elite all go underground. And they leave the sheeple on the surface. And then the elite meet the rulers. And the rulers say, oh, let me take off my mask. You know, I'm a little hungry today.
Lunch.
Lunch, yes. Lunch. In other words, you chuckle. But we have a saying, nothing is exactly as it appears to be. And devious people create being involved in very devious schemes that are more devious than they themselves are. That's why it pays to be good. It pays to be a little innocent. It pays to be a bit naive. It certainly pays to be kind-hearted. The more you want to manipulate others, you attract forces that empower you for a while, and then you are their lunch. And that's a possible scenario that the world leaders are very frightened of, because they are stuck between the old rock and hard place. They don't know who to turn to. They don't know who to trust. As many of you are feeling this. Who to trust? Who to trust? Oh, lots of subjects we covered today. Who has a question or something they want to bring up that's important?
Someone cares, Brother Ali.
Who is this, please?
Brother Ali, someone cares.
Brother Ali is good.
Okay.
You don't have to get too many honorifics.
Okay. I'd just like to thank you and the Pleiadians for the work that they have been doing, because it has been a very good, positive work. And even though it may seem like a lot of people are not picking it up, they are. And you know, it takes a while to grow into this type of knowledge, but
that's well said. It takes a while to grow into it, yet finish.
But you know, we coming, you know, because it was you're here for a reason, and
remember this: it takes a while to grow into it. But Brother Ali, the truth and the intelligence is in everyone's DNA. And so once you give it a little room, you're like a hen who scoots her body on the nest and settles in. But once you give it a little room to spark, unless you are completely deficit of intelligence in this lifetime, and there are some who simply take that on, but the large majority are not deficit in intelligence. You have simply thrown your intelligence away. But once you take these ideas in and you let it set, as many have said to us, it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And that's where we are dangerous.
Exactly.
Because it starts to make sense. And understand that we appreciate your appreciation, but we cannot fix your world. But our duty, and along with our vehicle's duty, and we know she has recently said in 1,000,000 years, she would never do this again. She's now saying make that 20 million years. Just to let you know that this has not been an easy journey, fun sometimes, but as one gracious lady said here, and we'll talk about that in a moment, the difficulty of becoming aware, of being a spokesperson or person who sees through things, and then the pain of watching friends, families, neighbors acting ignorant, and then not only acting ignorant, doing things to harm each other and poison each other without being aware of it, thinking they are good people. In other words, people who buy the 7-foot long, 10-foot tall, we are exaggerating, but you get the picture, big screen TVs. And they think, oh, my kids are going to love me because now we have movies in our own home and we can make poisonous microwave popcorn to destroy ourselves while we watch these movies. It's all insane. Yet if you were, Brother Ali, to go up to one of your neighbors and say, no offense, but you know, I'm discovering that this is very harmful to your children, those neighbors wouldn't talk to you again. They think, what kind of nutcase are you? Mind your own business. Do you understand? So we applaud your appreciation and your awareness. And yes, things can change, but people are going to have to really see through stuff. One of our visions that we see for the future is that once people figure it out, there will be a lot of cell phone towers taken down in the night. not for a while yet. And that's all we are going to say. Anyone have a good joke or something they want to share?
Peace, it's Dorsey.
Dorsey,
I know you
yes.
say you can't fix our world, but it was a story I heard. This guy wanted to watch some game, and his little son was irritating. So it was a picture of a world. He just tore it up and put it together, figured that would keep him busy. And the son came back pretty quick, and with the thing, together, he said, "How'd you do that?" He said, "It wasn't real neat," but he said, "That's pretty good. How'd you do that so quick?" And the son said, "Well, on the other side was a picture of a man, and I put the man together, and the world was together." And his son said, "You're right, son. When the man's together, his world is together."
That's a nice little story there.
That's a nice story.
It's a nice little story.
I would like to have a comment.
Yes, and you are the lady who, what's your name?
Vida.
Vida?
Vida.
And you were the lady who asked about the struggles of awakening, yes?
Yes, that's correct.
And it is a difficult journey, and so you can see why lots of people are not on it.
Yes, absolutely.
But Vida, let us say this to you. The large majority of people, once they start figuring things out, even if it is herbs or the foods, all right, and they figure out, oh, you mean that certain foods, if I eat them, they will stimulate my digestion, or celery will, for example, lower my blood pressure. Once they figure anything out, it becomes very empowering. But then people around them don't want to hear it because someone does not want to eat celery. Oh no, I have to go to the doctor. How can celery fix me? I have to go to the doctor. I want those pills, etc. And so it is very challenging to awaken, and yet the large majority of people, once they start to feel better about their choices, they're not going to go back. Some people may stop and say, "This is too difficult. I don't want to know anymore. I'm too scared." But the large majority of you are time-coded and released, and there's a method to your unfolding. What sign are you, Vita?
Taurus.
A Taurus.
Yes.
All right. So you are a person who is a stabilizer, and you like tradition, traditional values. You like nice things. You are generally reliable, a stabilizer in your community and family. That's a little bit of a read on Taurus, and you've just had a birthday in the last month, so happy belated. What's your question?
Well, it wasn't a question. It was something that I come across. I'm always seeking and searching, and when I turned another year older, I just came across a little proverb that just really helped me, and it was, "You can't start now to make a new beginning. You can't start over to make a new beginning, but you can start now to make a new ending."
You can't start now to make a new beginning.
You can't start over to make a new beginning, but you can start right now to make a new ending.
And that is very nicely said. Yes, very nicely said. And every time you learn something, you change the outcome of your life. Every time. Just by knowing that celery reduces blood pressure, or that celery helps out with too much buildup of nitric acid in the body. For those of you who don't understand food, study food and herbs and their properties. Absolutely very empowering to help people realize that nature is full of substances that can get you smarter, get you more centered, and get you more clear. So do you want to ask us anything else?
No, I just concur and agree with everything that's been said. This is my first time sitting in on one of these
Sessions.
And I have thoroughly agreed.
Now let us ask you a question, if we may. What have you found to be the most difficult part of expanding your consciousness?
I would say just the walk of being alone, loneliness sometimes.
Yes, in other words, not having others to share your thoughts with?
Absolutely. And I don't have to be alone, but to your point earlier, when you are with people who don't have the same frame of mind,
yes,
it becomes very boring.
Boring, that is it exactly. And yet you can't get rid of all the people who don't see that would be ineffective, you have to learn to censor yourself. You have to learn to listen. When you listen, you use telepathy. And it is isolating and separating, and yet when you find someone who awakens and that you relate to, it can be very stimulating and exciting. Now, one of the things we do want to remind everyone of is that the power of your intentions. I intend that I attract people to my life who are honest and reliable and will be new friends that I can discuss these situations with. When you either write it down or think it every day, this is the power each individual has to create their own wellness and to create their reality. And do not think that one group of people, male or female or any race, is more endowed than others. Although we will say that your genetic inheritance and your DNA background is going to have a very powerful story on either holding you in a certain position, because all people have been set up to be workers of some sort in a certain situation. And when you break out of this, of course, it's very empowering. It then starts to activate the story that's in your DNA. Anyone who has ancestors who come from the Middle East or the continent of Africa, particularly Northern Africa or South Africa, and that would include Zimbabwe, South Africa, Botswana, this whole area, even up to Mozambique, Madagascar, the area in Africa around Victoria Falls, all of this. This is old Anunnaki Enki territory. And we cannot emphasize enough that in the darker skinned DNA are the stories of what really happened on the planet. They're just very, very, very buried. And so some of the best work that all of you can do, no matter what kind of DNA you are sitting on, is to recognize that as you start awakening, there's all your ancestors' stories, everything they've been through, whether you know them or not, is in the DNA. That's who you are, a compilation of your ancestors. And as you awaken, we want you to contemplate, wow, there had to be ancestors of mine who left their awakening in my DNA. And as I awaken, I'm going to tap into their knowledge and the records that they left me. And maybe in their deceased state, they're watching me right now. And they can help me figure things out and tell me the story that the whole planet needs, that I know in my version of my DNA. Do you think you can sit on that, Vita?
Yes.
And start working with it? Because we'll tell you something. The story that the people of color have is desperately needed by the planet. Desperately. The story of pain and the story of victory. Because many things happened in Africa. And it is in Africa that the genetic engineering and the mining and the planning took place. And this entirety is affecting the planet now. Yes, the Middle East was set up more for the gods, space control, mission centers. But the conundrum that you are all in your DNA, that pretty much is out of Africa. So those of you with that ancestry, think of it this way. Perhaps you have been pushed down and diminished, because if what you really know came forward and you simply spoke it as truth, this may be one of the keys, many of the keys the world is needing. All people have value, remember that. But also, act with dignity as a person, and do not fall for this genetic engineering, and do your best to honor who you have incarnated as, be it man or woman, and restore dignity to your life, no matter what station you have. Act with dignity and integrity. This will go a long way in creating unity and harmony.
I have a short poem to share.
All right, go for it.
The coming of someone cares. It's the Creator who rules our affairs. But you can see deep inside that you are part of this tribe when commitment and dedication is there. You can see that our task is truly great. But it's all right, it's never too late. To commit oneself to another soul is our highest achievement and goal. To give to another a helping hand is our Creator's ultimate divine plan. So we will run our race into the very end, gathering people who have love within, gathering people who truly understand someone cares is the image of a divine plan, letting all who listen truly know that they are divine, physical, and capable, that they are the key to their brother's victory by showing them love, commitment, and unity. Just let them know that he's never alone. Just let them know that you are as close as their phone. Just let them know that you truly understand their affairs. But we're just here because someone cares. Someone cares.
It is a little longer poem, but we would say it is a bit of a hip-hop there in terms of delivering a certain information. And see, you are chuckling, and it's good to laugh at things like this because, again, this is the energy starts flowing, your chakras open, and then you're going to feel charged up. And you are going to feel very charged up today, people. So you proceed slowly and drive carefully. Mars is still up there with the moon, and Mercury is still retrograde until tomorrow. So hold your horses, go slow, and proceed throughout the summer with caution. Who else has questions? Sue, we haven't heard from you. Do you have something you want to bring up?
I do, and thank you.
You're welcome.
One thing is, there's a library at Duke where they have a display, and the display is that about 50% of the U.S. presidents have had mental illnesses.
Over 50% of U.S. presidents
have had
mental illness.
And they have been kept hidden with some of them. Yeah. So it almost makes me wonder how many more have mental illnesses that haven't even come out. And could these mental illnesses actually be entity possessions?
Well, more than likely, yes. And it has been, more than likely, yes, it is entity possession. Wherever you have a lot of intrigue and betrayals and death, you are going to have restless spirits. And the capital area, which was built according to Masonic specifications and laid out in certain geomancy, star shapes, etc., all of this is high occult magic to run energy. The building of the capital, the placement of everything. And remember, Washington, D.C. was built on a swamp, which is, as was the whole land between the two rivers that the Anunnaki excavated. That was all swampland between Tigris, Euphrates, the area that became their playground, and of course their mission control areas. So Washington, D.C. is built on a swamp. The problem with swamp is that it's infested, and even if it is rehabilitated, there's often a malaise in the air and the land from swampland. And it's long been said that Washington is haunted. there's many rituals, secret rituals that take place in the Capitol, Washington, the entire area. Remember how many memorials to the dead there are in Washington as well, commemorating the deceased spirits. You think this is honorable, but they call them in and trap them there. So yes, many presidents have started off with good intentions, very naive, thinking they had aspirations, political background, money, backing, and they get there. They move their family in, and they realize, holy manure, this is not what I thought it was going to be. They say worse than holy manure, of course. And then the Secret Service is there all the time. They can't do anything without the Secret Service. They have no privacy. But it's filled with non-physicals. And the Celestials have always run it, except for a few times when they've vacated for a little while. It's also been pointed out that many of these presidents they were big betrayers to their wives. Some of them like little boys. And then there is the story of how many first wives got sick or went insane. When you engage in chronic deceit, when you chronically lie, chronically deceit is called pathological liar. You weaken your energy field. And of course, there's no president that has the luxury of telling the truth. They can't. So yes, they do go insane. Yes, they are haunted by other forces. There are many a dead president that walks the halls of the Capitol because when they are deceased, they are ceremonially interned. Many of them have their viewing in the rotunda so that the public can come by and nod. But there are ceremonies behind the scenes that trap the soul. So there are many a lost soul of a president that hold the office in place. Have you noticed how these people age so quickly? And they look very, very bad?
Yes.
And then how many secrets they hide. How many things are not at all what they appear to be, especially with the current administration. There are so many lies and so much deceit. It's appalling what has taken place. So that's a very good point, Sue, that the highest office of the land, which looks to be a high honor, and people are running, fighting to want to get that position so that they can then lose their noodles. What does this say in summation? Brother Ali says that people can make a difference and awaken. That is our contention, otherwise why would we be here? And yet on the other hand, we point out to you every hole and fallacy and every challenge that you have to overcome. And these things can be overcome if enough people want to awaken. Yet there's a lot of comfortable people who are going to be very disenfranchised this summer as they realize their pensions, their securities, their jobs, that many things are going to slip and fade away. And sometimes it takes a crisis to bring people into awakening. Those of you who choose to awaken without being knocked on the head, those who follow your curiosity and question and say, this doesn't make sense, the coming confusion will be much easier on you. Those who are in denial or who had rough awakenings and had to be knocked over to realize things, it's not going to be easy for them. So your job, as always, is going to take on the role of stabilizers. To keep your faith strong, this is Neptune, to the highest degree, not to be delusional or deceitful, but to have faith. A faith in your own ability to be safe, to be in the right place at the right time, and to accept that there is no God that punishes you except these sky gods who want to manipulate you. The greatest force, the prime creator, first cause, is in everything. It's curious, it's empowering, and it's very excited when you start taking on its qualities of curiosity, of creativity, of love, of stability, of wonder. Hold fast to these ideas and create the very best, dear friends. We will see you someplace in the cosmos, on earth, in the ethers, in the dimensions, on the highways and byways of creativity. Do your best to be serene, to be pleasant, to be innovative, and very, very clever. It's been our great pleasure. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We don't always get a hand here. On the road we do. We stay around for the clapping, but that was extra special. Pleasant journeys. Good afternoon.